Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video on historical knitting. I'm really excited to share with you all what I've been working on because I think I've been making really good progress towards my overall project goal. And that project is to make an entire outfit from 1892 that's hand knit, or at least mostly hand knit. If you've been following along so far, I've actually finished a pair of stockings already, as well as a set of combinations. And at this point, it's time to move on to the next layer, and that begins actually with the corset. This is one of the pieces I said would not be sewn by me because I'm just not quite confident enough in my sewing abilities in order to make an accurate 1890s corset. So when I began thinking about where I would get this corset and what I would like it to look like, I decided to go look at some historical examples. The first place I looked was a fashion catalog from 1890 and 1891, and I found some beautifully hand-drawn sketches. And then I also looked at some museum collections, and I absolutely fell in love with this one particular corset that is this beautiful off-white color and has a really nice light blue ribbon through the top. So with these two ideas in mind, I actually went and I found a corset online, which is based off of an 1890s pattern and would make a fantastic base for me to work off of. And so one of the main things that you'll notice is different between the base corset that I have and the examples that I'm working towards is that the examples have a beautiful lace trim around the top, as well as some flossing, some corset flossing or decorative embroidery that actually helps preserve the boning within the corset itself. And so those are the things that I will be adding to this corset. So the bit that I'll actually be knitting for this video will be the lace trim around the top. And for that, I'm going to be going back to The Art of Knitting, published by the Butterick Publishing Company in 1892. And this is what I've been knitting all of the other pieces from as well. If you might have seen in my last video, I actually had a copy printed for me because it's available for free online, and I'll put the link down below so anyone can look at it. If you would like to look at the patterns and the pictures, which I think are absolutely beautiful, feel free to do so. But I just like holding the patterns and the book in my hand myself. And what I'm really excited to share is that I actually received I bought a original 1892 copy of The Art of Knitting, and I have it here. And when I went through this book, I think I found a lace pattern for lace trim that'll work perfectly for trimming the top of this corset. And I can show you here, because I believe that it actually looks quite similar to the trim that's on the sketch itself. So the first thing that I have to do at this point is actually translate this written lace pattern into a lace chart. I personally really prefer working off of charts, so I'm going to be taking the words that they've written out here and I'm going to be translating that to a chart next before I start knitting. Wish me luck. So while I was trying to transfer the written lace pattern into a chart, I had to go through a few iterations because there's definitely a few rows that didn't particularly add up, but after the third, fourth iteration, I think I came up with a chart that seems to make sense, and we'll see how it knits up. Since I had a lot of leftover yarn from my combinations project, I decided to use the same exact yarn to make the lace to trim the corset. The pattern doesn't specify a needle size, so I decided to start with a US size 1 needle and knit a few rows of the chart to see if I liked how that turned out. It turns out that I actually think the pattern looks far too open, and I don't think that the actual definition of the lace pattern is coming through. So I had to do the unfortunate thing of unraveling my work, but luckily I didn't work that many rows to begin with. For my second attempt, I skipped straight to the smallest needles that I could find, which I believe are a US size 000, and you can see the size comparison to the first one that I tried out here. I'm hoping that this will actually bring out the definition of the lace a lot more. While it might not be super easy to tell, I think that the lace definition actually looks much better on these needle sizes, so I'm going to continue with this size of needle as I work on the lace trim. After finishing a few repeats with this needle size, I'm really happy how it looks, and even happier actually how it looks up against the corset. Now it's just time for a whole bunch of knitting as I make enough of the lace trim to wrap all the way around the corset. Many pattern repeats later, and I think I now have enough. I also think that the lace chart that I ended up
creating looks pretty similar to the pattern illustration that came with the instructions. After pinning the lace evenly around the top of the corset, I started to sew the lace trim to the corset itself. Now, I'm not an expert sewer at all, but I decided to just stitch the top part of the lace to the corset itself because I thought that it would fit more nicely around the top curves of the corset. Taking some inspiration from the museum corset that I found online, I decided to add some blue ribbon to the lace itself. As you can tell, I'm struggling a little bit here, so I really would recommend anyone else doing this to maybe add this ribbon before you sew your lace down to the corset itself. It's still possible to thread it through at this point, but it's definitely much more of a hassle than if I had done it before I decided to sew on the trim. I'm actually really happy with how the lace trim turned out, especially after adding the blue ribbon. And as a bonus, the blue ribbon that is in the lace in the corset trim here actually matches the ribbon that goes through the top of my combinations and ties it shut. So when I wear it together, it'll all match. It was time now to add the flossing to the corset, and you can see here that I did do an original attempt, but I thought that the thread that I used looked far too thick, so I decided to undo it and try it again. Luckily, it didn't leave too many marks remaining. Here you can see a comparison of the new thread that I'm trying to use to floss the corset versus the thickness of the old thread, and I'm hoping that this will work much better. I should also note at this point that what you're seeing here is my second ever attempt at embroidery after my failed first attempt, so I definitely have very little experience, and I'm just going off of some very informative images, diagrams, and articles that I found online, which I'm happy to also link down below if anyone else is interested. But you'll see me redoing this a few times until I finally get a look that I'm happy with in the end. After following one of the stitch diagrams, I came up with this kind of crossed pattern, and I really like how it looked. My only problem is that my bones in the corset itself aren't quite the same length, so the position of the flossing would end up being different on the back side of the corset, which I knew would bother me too much, so I decided to unpick this particular embroidery stitch, and I went for something a little bit more simple that instead of following the bottom curve of the boning would actually go around the boning channel itself. So this is the flossing design that I ended up choosing, and I like it very much actually because I think it matches quite well to the sketch of the corset that I liked in the fashion magazine. So I continued to do this exact same stitch to all of the different boning channels all the way around the corset. After finishing flossing the entire bottom side of the corset, I know it's not perfect, but I'm actually really happy with the results, especially when looking at the corset overall. I think the effect is exactly what I was hoping for. I will admit that my corset's lace trim is not quite as intricate or wide as the one in the example that I was using as my inspiration, nor is my flossing quite as exact, but like I said, I am still quite happy with the overall effect that the additions had to the corset that I'm wearing. Here you can see me wearing all of my current items for the outfit together, and I also really like how using the same ribbon color and yarn type as the combinations ties the whole current undergarment layer together. I should also mention that I'm not an expert in corsetry at all, so I just got a corset that is exactly my size, and it is very comfortable for me to wear. Once again, thank you so much for watching my video this week. If you liked it, you can go ahead and give me a thumbs up. If you want to see more videos like this, you can go ahead and subscribe as well, as I'll be releasing more videos as I finish more pieces to my outfit. I hope to see you all again very soon. Bye.